Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. Today, I've got a very interesting guest, someone that I have got a lot of value from, and I'm looking forward to bringing a lot of value to you guys. I am in LA today, so I was on the panel at the MBA Mortgage Bankers Tech Conference. Garth Graham from Stratmore was the moderator. We had Aaron, who runs the mortgage platform for Zillow. We had Roostify. We had a really cool company called Hearsay on the panel, and it was all about mobile and how we as a mortgage industry can innovate with mobile for families that are buying homes and for realtors. So I'm gonna integrate that a little bit into my questions and today's conversation. By the way, if there is anybody on the call or you have your CTO or a tech leader that is here at the MBA Tech event, I still have a couple openings later today. So I don't know that I have socialized with you guys in the Mortgage Coach community, but we have finished going through all the new, who are the top 100 lenders, who are the top 1% mortgage professionals, and we're proud to say that 28% of America's top lenders are Mortgage Coach partners, and 34% of the top 1% originators in the country are using Mortgage Coach. So Brian, I'm going to bring you into the conversation in a minute, but when I founded Mortgage Coach 15 years ago, I really founded it on the thesis that the best mortgage professionals, the best loan officers, are the best teachers. You know, they're able to ask a family some good questions and then really teach them how to use a mortgage to buy a home, how to use a mortgage to build wealth with real estate. So just kind of as a side note for you, when a loan officer that's on our team and it's on this call, they either are a great teacher or they want to be a good teacher. They want to be better. So heads up on that.
Right on.
Right on. So Brian, we do these calls every Tuesday. So part of Mortgage Coach, while we're a technology company, we very much believe in order for people to use technology and take actions that are different than the ones today, they need to think differently. So, 4 days out of the 5 days, we teach tactics and how to use technology. And every Tuesday, really my goal is to get people to think differently. It's interview someone awesome and just get everybody, through inspiration and ideas to think differently. So everybody, this is Brian Johnson. I don't know how many of you in the Mortgage Coach community know Brian. I've only got introduced to him, I don't know, it's been months. It hasn't been years. Hal Elrod, who is a good personal friend and someone I've interviewed multiple times in our community, you just crushed it with his book review. So thank you for that. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Now, real quick question for everybody. If you could give everybody just a little bit on your backstory, a little bit about what you do, and then we'll drive it into habits, but we'll drive it in a few other directions too.
Yeah, so well, first of all, congratulations on everything you just described. That's awesome. Super cool. And I completely agree on the teacher side of things, reflected in my reading this morning. Whole nother conversation we'll probably get into. But my quick background is I've spent half of the last 20 years building businesses. I've built and sold 2 internet businesses to 2 publicly traded companies, raised over $10 million. And the other half of that 20 years I spent reading and writing and thinking and teaching as a philosopher, a lover of wisdom. And now I'm all in on teaching. So that's what I believe to be my life's work. And my whole approach is to deliver more wisdom in less time. People are busy. We were never taught how to live per se. And it's too late to catch up. We're too busy to catch up. So what I try to do is distill the best wisdom from the best books and teachers into concrete, actionable stuff we can apply to our lives today. I have something called Philosopher's Notes and something called Optimal Living 101, which is kind of the conduit through which I do it.
Yeah, well, I do want to get into that. So folks on the call, well, I guess sometimes I say, guys, put your mobile phones on, turn things off, don't multitask. I don't want too much multitasking. Let's not have 3 devices going at the same time. But I do want to make sure that in this call, I introduce you to Brian Johnson. I do want to make sure that coming out of this call, you know where to go to the well to get more of this. So a little bit of multitasking is cool. I know, by the way, Brian, almost every mortgage professional has 2 screens. They've got their desktop, they've got another screen, so we've got 2 screens going, and most mortgage professionals have 3 screens because they've got 2 screens plus their mobile device going at the same time. So heads up, that's the audience. And they're salespeople. You know, I mean, they wake up every day saying, how do I make more money? How do I get another family to trust me enough to do their home loans? How do I get another realtor, you know, who's getting barraged by 10 other mortgage professionals to trust me enough to refer their business to me? You know, so that is the mind of the mortgage professional. And the way we roll. So first of all, you created, you know, we decided when we were going back and forth via email, we were going to do this on Habits 101. Why did you, you know, like when I see the sea of content in your website and when I go into the back end of your product, you know, the Optimize with Brian Johnson, why did you invest so much in Habits 101? You know, why not some other topic? I mean, it looks like you've really made that a thrust and a focus. Why?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the answer is that if you look at the science of what makes great people great and what makes people succeed, it's essentially the ability to do what needs to get done when you need to do it, willpower, right? And I interviewed the guy who literally wrote the book on willpower, a guy named Roy Baumeister, who's one of the most cited social psychologists on the planet. And he says building willpower is the most important thing you can possibly do to improve your life. It's the greatest predictor of everything you want to achieve. It's a greater predictor of academic success in schools than IQ by a factor of 2. So it's twice as important as IQ, yet we don't teach people how to do this. And then the other important thing and how we arrive at habits is willpower is finite. You have a limited amount of willpower you could use in any given day, right? So the best among us actually don't have more willpower than other people. They've just used it wisely to install habits that run on autopilot, and it looks like they have superpowers. And if we can figure out that equation and use our finite willpower wisely to create habits, we can literally change our lives completely. And so that's why I'm all about habits, and we can obviously talk more about it. But that's the basic idea. It's all about using that willpower wisely, install habits that will truly impact your life, and then continuing to do that and stacking one good habit after another and becoming truly, you know, kind of a superhero in the process.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. So by the way, everybody, right now I have logged in to Brian's membership platform called, you know, Optimize with Brian Johnson. I don't know if you noticed it, but when I first went to the, you know, call it philosopher notes, there's like 300 books that he has just drilled down on. And I like the way you said it. You know, I want to help you. I can't remember how you said it, get the most wisdom in the least time.
Yep.
But, you know, I think this is pretty cool. So here's a book on willpower. I get a PDF of notes. I can watch the video. I can podcast it. So, I mean, you really go and, I mean, it's amazing the body of work you've created. So before we go too far into how to create better habits from a tactical perspective, and I do want to do that, I just want to know, how do you create such amazing content? Because mortgage professionals and realtors, we're all creating content, some of it better than others. Everybody's trying to package it. Everybody's trying to promote it. I mean, how big is your team? You know, I mean, I'd just be curious to how you create package content. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about how you're doing that, and then we'll get into the big topic?
Of course, habits. It's all systems. So everything in life is systems. So after I raised a couple $1 million for a business I was running up until the end of last year, and we were doing way too many things. So I literally blew that business up. We had $1 million of revenue. I took it down to 0, and I simplified and I focused on one thing, Gary Keller style, right? The one thing.
Right.
And my one thing is to create the greatest collection of wisdom I possibly can. And I think if I do that, it's the greatest collection of wisdom ever. That's my life's work. And God willing, I have 50 years to go do that. Let's go do it. So I know that's my one thing. And then I have one revenue line, which is people pay us $10 a month to get access to every single thing I create. And I want to give the best to the most for the least. That's my explicit strategy. Everyone in my industry is basically, you know, trying to see how much they can charge, and they kind of go with that. And there's some great stuff out there, but I'm taking the exact opposite approach, kind of the Walmart for democratizing self-development wisdom and trying to astonish people. So that's my absolutely explicit, clear strategy, and then I've aligned my entire life to do that. And we're a freemium model, which means I have to give away a ton of free stuff, and then I have to give away even more premium stuff, which is awesome because this is what I feel called to do. So we don't waste time doing anything other than that. And then I have a great, brilliant operator, my ninja, right, who runs the business side of things and helps me create the systems. We've probably got a team of about 10 people, you know, most of whom are part-time doing different things. And we've worked hard to make it so that all I do is what I'm here to do. So I'm in what I call my genius zone as often as possible. What is it that I and only I can do to create value in the business? And that's what I do. And I delegate every single other thing I possibly can, create the systems to do it. So then my days become, one of the classes I taught was called Masterpiece Days 101. So I'm all about helping people identify, well, what's a perfect day look like for you? A masterpiece day. Because all the great teachers say that's how you create a great life and the most value, stack one masterpiece day after another. And that's what I aspire to do, and systematically remove all the things that get in the way of me achieving that. That's a long answer, but that's the basic idea. I'm not even sure I hit on what you were looking for.
Hey, by the way, it wasn't that long of an answer. And folks, you know, hopefully you're following along on the screen. Brian, are you able to see the screen that I'm showing everybody?
This is so cool. Yeah, yeah.
So right, first of all, I am going to assign in chat right now, so at least you get one amazing video, if not more. Just put a link to that in chat. But, I mean, guys, check it out. So, I mean, you heard how clear his vision is. You hear, I mean, first of all, it's a really worthy vision. While he just mentioned he's got a membership platform that's $10 a month, obviously that's not a lot of money. That's more than most people spend at Starbucks, not in a month, maybe not even in a week, sometimes in a day. You know, I know I've got 2 teenagers and $10 is like nothing, man. I throw $10 away almost every day. And so I mean, super cheap, super valuable. But by the way, and I love the word you said, I want to astonish people, because I think that's how I felt when I watched your video where you just netted out Hal's book like there was no tomorrow, The Miracle Morning. I mean, my first interview with Hal was, I mean, I was really proud of it. I thought in an hour, I took his on-stage live presentation, and we just crushed it. And Hal rocked it out. And then I saw your video, like in 13 minutes, and I was like, oh, that's better, like 10x better. So check this out. We've got, you know, here's a personal development, greatest year ever, you know, over 500,000 views. So I want to drill down a little bit more, because it sounds like, one, you've got a lot more resources than most mortgage professionals. You've got obviously a lot more focus on creating content. So I don't want to spend too much time on, you know, what you're doing. What advice do you have for the mortgage professional, the realtor? Call it the person who they make a living on referrals.
Yep.
They make a living on being a trusted advisor.
Yep.
Creating content that, you know, helps you be a trusted advisor and a leader in your community is important. What's the playbook for them? You know, just kind of empathizing with that lack of resources. What advice do you have in terms of creating content? And then we'll get into the big topic of, you know, habits.
Yeah, so you've used the word trust a lot, and it's awesome because that's my number one thing. And everything I do, every single touch point I have, I want to do one thing. This is inspired by Seth Godin, which is to build more trust. That's all I want to do, build more trust. Build more trust. I want to help you. I want to serve you. I want you to trust that I am going to be a valuable part of your life. That's my entire business strategy, is to help people and to be worthy of their trust. And so before I get into content, though, for your team and all of your mortgage brokers, I think we need to think about you, the mortgage broker, and any entrepreneur. You are your company's greatest asset. You are the primary content. So you can produce content that helps people, etc. But you need to be the most inspiring person in your life and in your world. So when people interact with you, you are the content that makes them want to come back to more interactions with you. If you're the guy complaining and criticizing and blaming and all that all the time, I don't want to interact with you. I literally had an experience with a real estate guy who literally, I talked to him for 2 minutes, and most of the conversation was that. And I'm sure he's a sweet guy, but that's not the energy I want in my life. No one wants that energy in their lives. So the most important thing I think we can do is cultivate who we are, become better human beings. And it's an obvious thing, but it's often overlooked. And when we make that choice to be the radiant embodiment of what we think is important and the kind of person that we want to hang around with and other people want to be around with, that drives the whole show, you know. And we can talk details about how to create content, etc. But I think that's an important place to start. And then that's another reason why I'm so into habits, because there are certain things that you and I do when we're operating on our best. And we need to take the time to identify those core fundamentals, John Wooden style, right? Core fundamentals, the things that we do when we're just lit up and succeeding, and we need to do them all the time, ruthlessly. Focus on that. That's the most important meeting of the day, is our workout, eating well, and getting a good night of sleep. These aren't complicated things, but no one focuses on them. And when we do, we shine with a certain enthusiasm that's magnetic. So again, that's how I frame the content. See yourself as your company's greatest asset and invest in yourself a ton every day.
So you just gotta work on yourself and be the person. So I want to set the table for a couple minutes, because there is a habit that we believe in at Mortgage Coach that's a great habit. I do want to remind everybody we are recording this, and you can share it with folks. And while I think I've never seen a technology company that has a better YouTube channel than us, and I'm very proud of the body of work and the leadership we put in here. By the way, I want to thank you, Brian, because you helped us raise the bar. You have the best YouTube channel in the world of personal development, and we're going to work to get better. I do want to set the table around last week's call. I interviewed just a super top producer, Steve Grossman. By the way, Brian, he's like 61 out of over 150,000 mortgage professionals. This guy's number 61. So I mean, wow. And our members tend to be the best of the best, although we have more members at all at all levels of success. And so last week I interviewed Steve. I interviewed him and his assistant, our production partner Patrick, and we were just drilling down as a team, how can you guys crush it? So Brian, here's something that I am trying to drive with mortgage professionals. And so when we do the conversation on habits, assuming you agree with me philosophically, help me grow this. So yep. One thing I believe is I do believe that every mortgage professional, they need to learn to use their mobile device more strategically. And that means, first of all, there's times where that means we shouldn't even have it in our eyesight. And there are times of the days where we could be completely disconnected from it. But that also means there's times, and I do believe when a mobile device can be used efficiently, it's a great teaching tool. And when it comes to helping families buy homes, I think Zillow has proved out that help putting the MLS in the back pocket or in the purse of someone looking to buy a home, that's useful. I mean, that is great value to a home buyer, and so realtors, by the way, Brian, they're much more savvy than the typical mortgage professional with how they're using mobile. And the other thing, heads up, is that in our business, there's a lot of investment in technology. I don't know if you saw the commercial, don't even know if you watch TV as much as you're busy creating content, but Quicken Mortgage, did this commercial on, getting a mortgage as simple as pushing a button. There's a lot around how to use technology efficiently in our industry. And so the Mortgage Coach vision is when a family's getting into debt, don't just give them, fee worksheet in a transaction, but give them graphs and charts. Ask them some good questions, and then net it out for the family. Really put a 2-minute video or a 1-minute video so that the husband, the wife, the father who's loaning them the down payment, the realtor, everybody is in the loop. They understand their options, and they have transparency, and they have access to it anywhere and everywhere. So that's, by the way, Brent, that's our mission, is to, when a family gets into debt, we think that the mortgage decision is the biggest financial planning decision that 95% of Americans make. Most Americans don't have enough net wealth or income or assets to really have a financial planner, but liability management and making good mortgage decisions is their most important financial planning decision. So our whole mission is around when they make that decision, give them options, help them do it really, really well. Does that make sense to you?
I'm sold.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, so by the way, every mortgage professional that's on this call, they're sold too. But I would bet you that, I don't want to get into what the percentages are. Everyone gives a family a total cost analysis, but they don't give every family a total cost analysis. No. And my biggest challenge at CEO of Mortgage Coach is people, hey, when they pay us $90 a month, $900 a year, and then a lot of our clients, the CEO, the company is paying for it. they all see it and they're like, I should do this. It's better. If they're on this call, they're like, I should do this. But yet some of them don't create the habit and they don't do it for everybody. Even though they know they should, even though they want to do it, they don't create the habit, you know? So that is, as CEO of Mortgage Coach, I mean, that's always a big problem that I'm solving for. So,
I love it.
So let's get into habits. Let's go the rest of the call. I'm crushing it around habits. Everybody, you guys know how I roll. Feel free to submit questions in our GoToWebinar control panel. Chat, you know, you get a big takeaway. Feel free to share that. I'm going to ask Brian questions, but you guys know how I roll. The question after the question is the question that really matters. So I'm going to ask some questions and let's go deep. And Brian, if I'm not asking you the right questions, ask yourself a question. Let's net this out for everybody. Sound good?
Right on. It does. And let's start with, if you don't mind, stepping back for a moment on the proper use of the mobile. As you're describing that, there's no question that the on phase of that, right, where we're engaging with what's available technology-wise is huge. And systematizing that habit with clients is obviously huge. I love that idea. We can drill into how to do that. And I also want to stress a couple of quick points on having the phone off. So when we talk about trust and building relationships, the iPhone comes in, or whatever phone you're using, on that account as well. And there's actually research done on something called the iPhone effect. The short story is simply having your smartphone, let's say you're not using it to do a presentation, your iPad or your phone, right? But you're at a coffee meeting or at your office or whatever. Simply having your iPhone in sight, even if you're not using it, diminishes the quality of connection between you and the other individual. So, and this is statistically rigorously tested, right? So putting your iPhone away when you are trying to have a deep relationship and be present in a conversation is huge, not just with your clients, but also with your family. So I just want to make that point. And then the other thing that's a big part of my work, and I think is a universal habit, I talk about universal habits and then specific habits. So mortgage brokers have specific habits they need to master to excel. But we all have universal habits. And one of them is to do more deep work. Cal Newport wrote a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You, and another one called Deep Work. In Deep Work, he said, look, everyone's doing shallow work these days. Deep work, where you're flitting from thing to thing to thing. You're not actually thinking and doing strategic work, right? Making it increasingly more rare and more valuable. And you can't do deep work if you're getting blown up by all the different text messages, etc. So one of my big kind of points is if you want to do truly creative work, and we all do, then you need to take time to think and have the phone off and the Wi-Fi off in order to structure your life and your days in the most meaningful way. So just 2 points on the other side of proper use of mobile technology.
Well, I love it. By the way, I want to connect the dots for mortgage professionals on that because we teach, call it how to use your mobile phone as a teaching tool. And so I think the takeaway there is when you're connecting, you're in that first few minutes where you're just emotionally connecting and you're asking great questions. Yeah, you have your mobile device out of sight. Yeah. And then when it's time to, I listened to you, I heard you, to use that phone and to use that delivery of the total cost analysis, say, this is what I heard you say. I heard you say that down payment and monthly payment is, you need to keep it low. And use it as a way to say, now this is what I heard. These are your options. And then to Brian's point, once that teaching, call it that teaching component, and that let's model out your options, now take it back and put it back in your pocket and emotionally connect, listen, take notes. So first of all, that's not something that we have shared. And by the way, you just added a best practice to, what we call the Mortgage Coach Perfect Borrower Conversation. I haven't actually been coaching loan officers. There's a time and place. Keep it in your pocket or your purse. And when it's time, now it's going to have more impact. It's going to be more relevant. So by the way, thank you. I mean, if we ended the call right now, you just gave us a best practice that we can be better leaders. So keep rolling, my friend. Why don't you ask yourself another question? And you know what you know and what we need to know. So I'll let you take the next, and I'll come back in a minute.
Well, this is good. I mean, yeah, everything you said is just so spot on. Go with it. I really appreciate your insight on what you guys need. I feel like that was what I felt like I needed to share on that front. So I'm happy to drill in, or if you want to.
Well, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's because I think if folks just watch one of your videos, they're going to keep going. And at the end of the day, I want people, leaders or learners.
Yep.
And you make learning very efficient. I mean, to be able to learn as much as you can in the 10 minutes that you create, if I can just get there. So let's drill down on this Habits 101 video that you did. By the way, guys, while Brian's talking, I will share that in chat. Don't watch the video and listen to Brian at the same time, please. But I do want to make sure let's drill down on this and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, so then the best place for them to go actually is brianjohnson.me/habits. Then they get access to the entire class, which, there's a intro video, right, of the 7 or 8 minute introduction to it, where I outline the top 10 big ideas I focus on. But they'll get access to everything just by going to that URL you just typed in. And then they'll get that intro video and basically my best thoughts on how to go out and live an extraordinary life by cultivating these habits. They'll also get philosopher's notes on the books that I use, like Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning, Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit, Superhuman by Habit, and a bunch of other awesome books. So there's a ton of stuff. We've got meditations to help you crush it that my wife does, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Wow. By the way, guys, check it out. We all love Hal. I mean, I had him speak at an industry event to about 1,500 people a year or two ago, and I also referred him to my friend Darren Hardy, and Darren interviewed him, and Hal has completely blown up on our industry, as well as Darren. Darren's a good friend. We interview Darren a few times a year on these calls. So by the way, those are 2 folks that everybody on this call knows really well. So any way you want to integrate your content into kind of netting it out with those 2, feel free to do it. But folks, I put the link to Brian's class here. So Brian, let's just drill down on that one video for about 15 minutes, and let's see, let's share. Obviously, I think everybody's going to watch the video, but let's share some color that's outside of the video, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would identify. You started talking about the habit, using the mobile in a smart way is a really important specific habit for mortgage brokers. What I would do is I would break it down and say, what's the number one thing you need to do? What's the absolute number one thing that if you did it consistently, professionally, would have the most positive impact in your life? And I think for your guys and women, it's going to be different, right? Because some of them have installed this habit already, some of them haven't installed that habit. But I think we need to identify that. And researchers call it the keystone habit. There's a habit that you can identify in your professional life that if you did it consistently, and by consistently I mean all the time, right? It's just 100% non-negotiable installed habit, that if you did it would have the most positive impact in your life, like catalytic, right? Fire you up, truly change your life kind of habit. I start with identify that, know what it is, and then make 100% commitment to installing it. Not 90%, 95%, 98%, 100%. And you can't make that kind of commitment, all-in absolute commitment to a ton of habits. You pick one. I would suggest you do that professionally, and then I would suggest you do that personally. And you identify what's the number one basic fundamental, the eating, moving, sleeping, that sort of thing fundamental, that if you did it consistently, maybe you're not getting enough sleep. Well, all the research shows that's imperative. And you need to make the decision. Do you want to actualize your potential as a human being and as a business person, or do you want to be entertained? Turn off the TV or whatever it is you're watching for an hour earlier at night and get a better night of sleep. And make the connection between that and your performance the next day, if that's where you need to optimize, or maybe it's nutrition, or maybe it's exercising. That when you do that consistently, you're on fire. Well, know what your keystone personal habit is and commit to crushing that. That's on the high level, the most simple frame, and then of course you connect it to why it matters and kind of get the power of that purpose and all that good stuff. But I'll take a breath and check in.
Yeah, no, thanks for checking in. So I mean, we're, Simon Sinek, and the whole message around why is a big part of our mission at Mortgage Coach. So Simon helped me out many years ago. I actually interviewed Simon last year. So everybody on the Mortgage Coach team, they know Simon Sinek because it's, he's just been one of those mentors that was the right guy at the right time that really helped me take things to another level. And we do a lot of building why here at Mortgage Coach, and I mean, even when we teach people how to use technology, I always say it starts with why. Okay, you signed up for Mortgage Coach, why? And whenever I interview a loan officer who's just, let's just say, crushing it, they've delivered 1,000 Mortgage Coach total cost analysis, I mean, which is a lot of using our product to help a family. And I go, well, why do you do it? It's just like boom, boom, boom. It's passionate. They're excited. And then when I talk to some loan officer that has signed up, pays us money every month, it's like a gym membership that they never use, and I ask you, well, why? I get, well, I mean, they just, stutter and putter, and they're trying to think about their why. So I also, when I teach my trainers, start with why. Get everybody to write down their why. And by the way, it's hard. Like, people don't do it. So I'm going to throw it back to you. How can we get people to actually do that? I mean, we know we should do it, but I'll bet you a lot of people on this call haven't done it. Let's talk to that. Everything that you've learned.
Really good.
How can we get people to do that more?
Well, here's an interesting thing. We'll just kind of run with this. So what comes to my mind is a woman named Michelle Seeger, who's arguably the world's leading scientific researcher on the science of why motivation for health behaviors. So why do people work out, for example, right? This woman is just drilled into that. She wrote a book called No Sweat, which I have a full philosopher's note PDF and MP3 and TV on. But the basic idea is that people have the wrong why. They too often use abstract motivation, which doesn't work. So for example, if you ask people, hey, why do you work out? Why are you committed to working out or eating well or sleeping, right? Most people will say, well, I want to live longer, I want to feel better generally, right? They give abstract reasons. I think it's something like 75% of people give that response, right? 25% of the people say, well, because I want to feel good today. I see the connection between, if I do this, then I experience that now, not concretely, not in an abstract thing, right? And only 25% of people say that. 75% have abstract, weird, bland, not motivating, but everyone has them, so you think that's why you should do it, right? Then you fast forward, you follow these people for a year, and you find out that the people who had the most common motivation worked out like 30% less than the people who had the concrete made a connection motivation. So my thing, why I work out every single day is I feel great, not because some abstract I want to live longer. Of course I want to live longer and I want to blah, 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 but I want to produce and I want to feel great. And I've made the connection between, if I do this, if I turn off, I do something called digital sunset. I'm a nut. I've turned on my phone 4 times this year so far. I'm a hermit. I'm committed to creating content. I don't need a phone to do that. This is me being extreme, right? So I turn everything off at sunset, and I call it a digital sunset. Why do I do that? Because I want to get a great night of sleep so I can wake up and crush it first thing in the morning for a few hours before my family even gets up. That's really important to me, and I can make the connection between that. So I think whatever it is we want to install in our lives, make the connection between your behavior right now and how you feel and how you perform immediately or an hour later or a day later. Not some abstract thing, but a really, really concrete thing. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So by the way, I am kind of thumbing through this habits workbook. Did you create this? I mean, is this your hand?
I wish that I could draw like that. We had one of our members is a really talented artist called an Etch-a-Sketch artist in Germany, and she started doing my stuff. She'd watch a video and she'd create something like this, and we said, you're amazing. And now she is our artist who does this for all of our classes, and she's amazing.
Right? I mean, she's crazy. I mean, this is cool all on its own. I mean, just the way that you guys designed it, the way you packaged it, it's one, unique, two, it's awesome, and it almost like pulls you in. It makes you want to fill this thing out.
That was the idea, theory to practice.
Yeah, right? So that's pretty cool. So folks, by the way, Brian, do you want to finish that thought? I'm going to go to the audience and see if they have some questions.
Let's go. That's always the best source of wisdom.
Okay. So, So you talk a lot about upgrading habits and creating new habits. Any suggestions on stopping bad habits? Mm-hmm. Which it might just be like, well, it's the same thing, or is it different?
This is good.
Any comments or thoughts on that?
Scroll down to, let me see where you are. Scroll up, if you will, on that workbook, because this is spot on to exactly how I approach things.
Okay,
so
tell me, what am I looking for? What am I looking for?
You're looking for...
What page?
There you go. Stop doing lists. You're on it.
Oh, boom.
I call it kryptonite. I happen to just go watch Batman versus Superman. Kryptonite.
By the way, was it good? I mean, should we really go on?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the high production value films and just turning my brain off for at least a couple hours, at least once or twice a month.
All right.
So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Thinks it was worthy. FYI, everybody.
It was good. I love the good hero story and all that good stuff. But we all have kryptonite in our lives, right? Another way to think about it is the sirens. So in the Odyssey, Odysseus, right, was cruising on his ship, and he had all these temptations. Little side note to that, I never knew that the sirens, who obviously if you listen to them, would drive you into the rocks. They would seduce you into the thing you shouldn't be doing, and you'd die. There's a whole conversation around how to use willpower, which we can get into on that. But the sirens tailored their song for each sailor. They had a different song for each person. We each have different sirens. We each have different kryptonites in our lives that pull us down. And there's a spectrum of kryptonite, right? There's the mildly annoying, I wish I didn't do that so much. And for some of us, there's the life-destroying addictions that just are literally destroying our lives. We need to be honest about it and step back and say, look, this isn't working for me. If I want to optimize and actualize, I need to stop doing this. So that's what this sheet is figure it out. And then it is a similar analysis. You identify, well, which one of those, if you stopped doing it and never did it again, would have the most positive impact in your life. That's your keystone kryptonite habit that you need to get rid of. And then it's not a tepid, oh yeah, I kind of sort of want to get rid of it. It's a, let's make 100% commitment to that. Tie it back into your why and be done with it. Like that's the very direct, blunt, high-performing way to approach it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I've got another question from the audience, but I also want to do a question from a friend of mine, Steve Scanlon, who has been a coach in our industry for more than a decade. His whole philosophy, he's got this. You can check out his website, Rework, and I mean he's skeptical with a lot of the content in the marketplace that is how to create change, because let's face it, changing isn't that easy. It's really, 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 really hard. So with that said, I would love to hear the kind of feedback and results you're getting from your community, but I'd also love to hear, what do you think are the biggest struggles? When you look at that list of 10 or think of your whole body work, what is the biggest challenge that we have as human beings when it comes to creating new habits? If there was one or two, what is the biggest challenge in your opinion?
What is the biggest challenge? Well, I think you're touching on it, which is the idea that it's going to be easy. I think that most of us have this idea that things are going to be easy, or that we're going to be able to do a certain amount of work and then not need to do it anymore. One of my favorite books is called The Tools, which I highly recommend. Extraordinary book. I bought a copy for our team at the time years ago. It's an amazing book. They give you 4 tools to deal with the primary challenges in life, right? Dealing with fear, dealing with insecurity, dealing with anger, that sort of thing. They make the point that one of the biggest issues that people have is a sense of feeling, they want to feel exonerated from ever having to do work again. And the reality is, as we know, life doesn't work that way. And the naive idea that we should be able to do work and then be exonerated from future work is, in some senses, one of the biggest challenges, because you do a little habit, and you do it for 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 days, or even 5 or 10 weeks, and you think you're done. But the best among us practice their fundamentals more deeply than ever when they're at the peak. They know that those things are the most important, and they continue to do the work. They never feel like they need to get it. They need to be or want to be exonerated. They show up day in and day out. So I think that sense is a big risk. And then when we go in eyes wide open, of course it's not going to be easy to stop doing something you've been doing for years or decades. There we go. Let's roll up our sleeves, step back, and see what we need to do to make it happen. So I think that naivete can seduce us and needs to be addressed head on.
Yeah, and again, you said it's not easy. Acknowledge that it's not easy. While you netted out 10 things in this, Habits 101 video, it's not like it's easy. It's hard work that takes real commitment, real intentionality, really daily commitment. Okay. Anything you want to add to that before I go back to the audience?
Just to reflect, I mean, we're approaching 7,000 members right now. They range from the CEO of the Detroit Pistons, the CEO of Whole Foods, Olympic soccer coaches who watched the Habits class and emailed me literally, we hadn't even launched it yet, emails me saying, hey, I already installed the Keystone Habit as our team's prepping for the Rio Games on playing defense in the rain. Like it's practical stuff. And then Yeah, we've been blessed to have a lot of positive feedback from people making significant changes, because I'm all about this. I'm all about my number one thing that we haven't talked about yet, that is kind of the one word that summarizes my entire philosophy, is a Greek word, arete. So the Greeks said, if you want to have a sense of flourishing, not a sense of hedonic pleasure, but a sense of truly living your highest self, you need to live with what they described as arete. Which,
by the way, how do you spell that? How do you spell that?
It's arete, arete. arete. And it directly translates as virtue or excellence in English, but it means something closer to expressing the best version of yourself moment to moment to moment. So in this moment, you have an opportunity to express the highest potential within you right now in this moment. You either do that or you don't. If you do that, you feel great, right? There's no gap between what you're capable of being in that moment and what you're actually being. But if there's a gap between that potential and your expression, that's where regret and anxiety and disillusionment exist. Now, it's impossible to hold a perfect, arete every single moment, but that's what the best among us do. You can call it enlightenment, you can call it whatever you want. And disciplining ourselves to use every moment as another opportunity to express that is what it's all about. So that's the essence of what fires me up.
Wow, that's pretty deep. So that's a new one, because I have interviewed. So Ryan, just FYI, one of my life's work is interviewing top performers. For 7 years, every week I've interviewed someone amazing. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews. And I always come into that with, there's some common threads, and I've always been very tactical. They have great communication skills, they have processes, but they have arete. I never had that as kind of, that's it. They have energy, they have passion. Yep. So let's go there real quick. I know it's kind of a diversion from Habits 101, but at the end of the day, what can we do to build that? If let's just say, I want to perform and be more successful than where I'm at today, yep, my arete is off. How do we give us some intentionality to elevate that?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to go super mundane. And who comes to mind as you ask that great question is John Wooden. So John Wooden, arguably the greatest coach ever, that's ESPN's, anointment, right? Worked with the premier athletes of his era. What did he have them do on the first practice? He took a long time to teach them how to put on their socks. Literally, okay, so you got to pull it up right, don't get a wrinkle, because if you get a wrinkle, you might get a blister. And if you get a blister, you're going to miss some practice time, you're going to miss some playing time, and we're not going to win. The basic fundamentals, and Robin Sharma has a great line that he says when you look at great people, they all do different things in terms of expressing their greatness, but they're all unbelievably consistent on what they've determined are their fundamentals. And so if we want to have the best shot at actualizing our potential, we've got to dig a really deep foundation. And I like to say, you want to see how tall a building is going to be, you have to look at how deep they're digging the foundation. Single-story structure, you don't have much of a foundation. But if you want to build a skyscraper in your life, you need to put the time into the fundamentals. And our society doesn't honor and reward that. It's all the glitzy, latest, and greatest stuff. But the reality is it's the basic stuff like eating, moving, and sleeping that are my number one priority. I structure my entire life around that because I can't create what I want to create without great energy. It's all energy management, as Tony Schwartz and Jim Lohr say. It's not time management, it's energy management. And it's not rocket science. I have better days when I get a good night of sleep than nights I don't get a good night of sleep. And I'm committed to having great days as often as possible. Therefore, getting a great night of sleep is a deep priority for me. It's a fundamental. And I can walk you through all the others. But I think we get seduced by the slick, and the reality is, as John Wooden, in his era, it wasn't about slam dunks. It was about a makeable bank shot, layups right, and socks being put on right. And that ultimately, I think, is the essence of arete and the essence of greatness.
Yeah, well, again, it's also makes a good point for the miracle morning and starting your day with some wins. And I can't remember where I read, the importance of making your bed. It's the first thing you could do when you wake up in the morning. And if you make it, you'll be proud of yourself and you'll have done it. And if you don't do it, you started off the day with procrastinating. Which, by the way, I cannot claim I make my bed every day. So I'm not preaching to anybody because
let's connect. I want to connect Hal Elrod and Darren Hardy for a moment. And also we have a class, by the way, on conquering procrastination. That's one of the biggest things we get, right? And there's a science behind that I'm passionate about. And there's some very practical tips we can do. But to connect Darren Hardy and Hal Elrod for a moment, so Hal obviously is a genius with his Miracle Morning, right? In the biggest distinction, he talks about this a little bit, and Darren Hardy, I think, drives it home. The biggest thing you can do to create a great Miracle Morning is to do what Darren Hardy says, which is bookend your day. The time blocks that you have the most control over are your AM and your PM. Your day might blow up, and that's fine. You need to be a little reactive at times to get things done. But you need to bookend your day. And that's huge. I mean, again, it's such a simple idea, but how can you spend your time in the morning? Okay, thank you, Hal. Miracle Morning 101, awesome. No better source for how to structure your morning, right? And then you got to start your day at the end of your prior day. What's your PM bookend look like? Making that subtle shift has probably been the biggest change I've made in my life. Of noticing that the nights when I needed to shut down and get a good night of sleep, I was a little stressed or burned out or whatever, were the nights I tended to watch whatever I was going to watch on my iPhone. I don't even have a TV, but I'd watch whatever, show or whatever for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes. I'd get a little riled up and I wouldn't sleep as well, and it would spiral a little bit down right when I needed to do the right thing. So those PM bookends, again, I can't emphasize enough the simplicity and the power of those basics.
Well, that's good stuff. And so, by the way, audience, we got 13 minutes left in this call, in this interview. So if you do have a passionate question that you want, let us know. Two, I feel like we've almost fire hosed you with homework assignments. So, I think I've put in 1, 2, 3, 4, a bunch of videos and links. So, I mean, I think the homework assignments, are big, but I'm good for more. And by the way, Brian, if you think there's just one, after hearing this call, hearing our mission, we want 2 million families a year getting a Mortgage Coach total cost analysis. And when we design, our mobile apps and everything we do, we design it for the family to make a confident decision, but we partner with the industry to get it done. And so I guess, you already elevated one best practice for us internally. Think about when we bring on a customer, a Mortgage Coach customer that, that has said, I want to do this. This is a better way to deliver it. It'll give me a competitive advantage. Usually they're thinking, I don't want to call it selfish, but it's going to give me a better conversion rate and I'm going to get more referrals. That is their why. I talk to a family, more of them are going to work with me and they're going to be more inclined to refer. What are some other, think of adopting new technology, what are some other best practices? If I was just to riff with you, what are the 5 things that are most important? And recognize that we've already got starts with why as number 1 on our playbook. What else should we put on our playbook from Brian Johnson?
This is great. This is so good. So whenever friends or whoever ask me for kind of strategic advice on their specific business, I always kind of punt on that and say, well, let's step back for a moment. And I'm going to deliberately repeat myself right now. But the strategy is obviously essential, but you and I are our business's limiting factor. To the extent we are better human beings, we are going to perform better at what we do, period. And it's easy to not take the time to actually feel into that. But if you and I consistently, and we obviously do to a high degree, but as we continue to say, well, what's the one thing I can do right now? How do I optimize 4% more today? How do I optimize 4% more tomorrow? And compound that as a human being, we do great things. This morning, I'm reading a book on the All Blacks, New Zealand rugby team, called Legacy. And they're arguably the greatest sports team ever, right, over their history. And they've got that haka many people might have watched, right? But they went through a rough patch and then they turned it around. And the primary thing they did, and I'm looking at a big idea that I'm going to pull out of this book, is better people make better All Blacks. So they basically stepped back, and before they even looked at the specific strategies to implement in playing rugby, they just stepped back and said, well, how do we make these guys better human beings? Because better human beings are going to be better All Blacks. So I'm kind of hammering that drum. But let's just be better humans. And you're a genius at empowering your crew to hit that 2 million family mark, which is super inspiring. And I imagine who I would want to interact with. I want to interact with the coolest, most vibrant version of your mortgage coach. And there are very basic things that they and we can do to be that, and the ripples on that, again, are impossible to overstate.
Wow. So you kind of say
that's the heart of referrals, right? Is this is a good guy? That's what I say. You can trust him. He's a good guy, and it's the halo effect of he won't know why he's even saying that. But here's a note I got from a member that is less about me promoting myself and more about this is the effect. Someone said, hey, just a quick message. I'm realizing how much my life has changed in the 3 short months since I joined your site. I've had a few friends tell me I look, sound, and act completely different as to not too long ago. More optimistic, more confident, more happier, focused, etc. I have goosebumps as I read that. Just want to show my gratitude for the value you bring to myself in the world. Looking forward to all the great blah, 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 right? That's what I'm talking about. There's an intangible energy that comes when you live with Arte. And the Greeks had a word for that too. They called it entheos. So the enthusiasm that you and I have right now in this conversation, enthusiasm comes from the Greek entheos. God is within us right now. God is within everyone who's listening to this when they're performing their best, when they're doing the little fundamentals. That's what we want to do. Live with Arte so we can live with entheos and have God shine through us and we can be the best version of ourselves. That's how you build trust. That's how you get all the little things that make things work, right?
Well, I mean, here's the deal. I mean, when I invented Mortgage Coach 15 years ago, I mean, I invented it on the concept of pathos, ethos, logos, and the concept that when I'm meeting with a family, if they trust me, they believe that I have their best interest in mind. That's a good thing. But by the way, if they just trust me, but they don't believe I have extraordinary credibility, like I am the smartest loan officer they've ever met with, they're still going to shop me. But if they believe I've got logos, pathos, they literally understand that I trust this person, and wow, this is the most smartest person I've ever worked with. They're not going to shop you. They're going to trust you. And it was
going to send all their friends to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is it. This is why this is it,
So folks, I mean, I hope this call has been valuable. I mean, I know this call has been valuable. I've been taking notes myself. So we were kind of wrapping up into the 5 minutes. I put a link here, brianjohnson.me /habits. Now, by the way, this is the full link to it. I put this link in there. But if you go to that, tons of premium content that, I mean, an overwhelming amount of content. I throughout this call, I have been just kind of riffing on your YouTube channel. Again, crazy amount of free content. Again, personally, I think one of the takeaways I said is you said, hey, obviously there's specific things that people need to do. And in Mortgage Coach land, we say, write down your why, create 5 Mortgage Coach total cost analysis, like over the next 2 days, and create 20 over the next week. So it's kind of like, we're just telling you do things. But I mean, one of the things we've had to learn at this company is to get people to do things different. They need to think differently, and I think you've given us some value. I think a takeaway is, folks, sign up for Brian Johnson's content and start spending some time every day just being a better you. And I guess that's not an easy lift for me and my team, but hopefully this call is us helping you guys be a better you. I see some questions coming in. I'll let Brian do this. What is the definition of ethos? And by the way, Brian, you're probably better at this than me. While I did love philosophy, and it was one of my all-time favorite classes in college, and I nerd out, I'm not really good at teaching it. So if you could tell everybody what ethos is, logos, and do a bit of a Brian Johnson philosopher riff on what all that means as we close out this call.
Yeah, well, it's funny because ethos was actually one of the, I'm flipping through the same book I was reading this morning that I talked about. Ethos was one of the words that he talked about, and I actually didn't know that I love the Latin and Greek roots, but I didn't know. He says ethos is the Greek word for character. Descended from the same root as the word ethics, it is used to describe the beliefs, principles, values, codes, and culture of an organization. It's the way we do things around here, ethos, right? So Greek word for character, how cool is that? That's what we're talking about. When you live with Arte, you have an ethos of striving to express the highest version of yourself moment to moment to moment, to do the right thing, and the result of that is entheos, is a feeling of radiant enthusiasm, a joy to be alive, and a magnetism that brings people in and brings all the wonderful things you want to experience more of in your life, right?
Love it. So by the way, folks, I can't find it. I wrote a white paper over 10 years ago called Mental Triggers. And little mortgage coach trivia, if you want it, email our support team. They'll forward you the PDF. But I just remembered that body of work that I wrote 10 years ago that just broke down all of that for the mortgage professional, because it really was part of the backstory to founding Mortgage Coach. So that's kind of cool. So we got 4 more minutes. Brian, I'll see if a question pops up here at the last minute. Oh, by the way, someone just said they were thinking about that. They had read the book. As we wrap up this call, what is the last thing you want to share with our audience? Whether it's, I think we've told them how to connect with you, but if you want to give them a few more breadcrumbs, feel free. And how do you want to wrap up today's, call it, lesson?
Yeah, with gratitude. I really appreciate you and just who you are and what you've done and how profoundly you're serving. It's inspiring for me, and just honored to be here, and then just all your great questions and your energy to help me feel alive. So thank you.
Right on. It's an honor. So any last words of wisdom for everybody as we wrap up today's call?
Have fun. We've been pretty intense with this, but yeah, I mean, we covered so much. I hope that they got something out of it, and I think that's actually a good frame. Is what was the one thing that jumped out at you? The one thing that landed. Think about that. And if you really want to make it stick, there's a science to learning, which I cover as well. Make it stick is the name of the book. Then you want to do a few things. You want to identify the thing that really landed, that really resonated. Not all the things that you kind of sort of, I don't know about that, but the thing that just jumped out and you're like, wow, yeah, that's just a reminder of something you already know. But take the time to actually sit down and write it down in your own words. That process, they call it disfluency. It's not easy, right? It's hard to do. You got to take some time and, well, how would I describe that to myself? Write it down. That's going to make it stick more. And then go share it with somebody. Explain to someone else something that distinction that you made and why it's important to you. And then, of course, most importantly, go out and live it. That one thing done consistently can have such a huge benefit as it's Darren Hardy style compounded over an extended period of time.
Right on. So we are not going to pull any more wisdom out of this call because I think we just fire hosed you guys with ideas and wisdom. I put a link to Make It Stick, which that's something I'm going to watch tomorrow morning during my self-improvement time. I do want to remind everybody on this call, every single day of the week, we're delivering education and value in a live format. We do believe being a master with your mobile device is an amazing way to serve families, to serve realtors. So tomorrow at 11 and every Wednesday we're doing a workshop on that. Every Thursday it's about tactical training on how to use our technology better. So check us out. And remember, guys, we've got a living and breathing calendar. When we updated our website recently, yeah, we wanted to make it better from a sales and marketing perspective. But at the end of the day, we just want to make it more valuable to you guys. So go to our calendar, keep updated on all the training that we're doing. Every single week, we're updating that. We had Brian Johnson today. Next week, I am interviewing Katie Wagner on social marketing. Our team did a nice job of not only, telling you what we're doing, but making it easy for you to share that with your team, whether you want to grab a link, whether you want to email it, whether you want to Facebook it. So check it out. So Brian, let's wrap up this call 1 minute early, and thank you for the gift of knowledge, and I hope our community resonates with you. I hope everybody signs up for your program, and I hope to have you back for an interview before the year's out.
I'd love to do that. This was a lot of fun. Thanks, Dave.
Take care, everybody. Have an awesome day. And by the way, as you leave, let us know what you thought of today's call on a scale of good to great. And if you are a guest and you want to learn more about Mortgage Coach, you know what to click. Click the bottom option. Take care, everybody.